A very good evening to you once again in business news at this hour. The new Multimodal Inland Port Association, which is tasked with leading the logistics transformation in Southern Africa, is seeking to reduce costs and bolster efficiency in the industry. However, this comes amid current and historic infrastructure challenges that prompted the need for a body of this nature. The agency's chairperson, Warwick Lord, joins us now. Thank you so much for your time, Warwick. Do talk us through Mipa's first priority areas here in seeking to reduce cost as well as bolster the efficiency in a time of inefficiency within the sector.
Good evening, and good evening to you and your listeners, and thanks. It's a great privilege to be here. Interesting question. The way we would like to, well, the first step and most biggest priority is that we need to start collaborating in order to ensure that we have the most robust supply chain, in order to ensure that there's no weak links in the chain. Part of the reason for us establishing the association was that we saw that there was a gap in the current conversation regarding road to rail, and the fact that there was no emphasis being put on the terminals or transfer facilities that are required in order to enable the road to rail renaissance. And so what we found is that we needed to come together as the private sector, as previously this had been Transport, Transnet's exclusive domain. And what we're looking to do is create agreements and structures so that we can start operating between us. That should lead to the densification, consolidation of cargo so that we can start achieving densification on rail and thereby reduce costs. So that in a nutshell is what we're looking to do.
Quite optimistic, and I think it's important that we take a step back and ask about the current state of logistics in Southern Africa that prompted the need for a body of this nature as well as its intervention processes.
Thank you. The current logistics supply, or the current supply chain in South Africa has been well documented, and unfortunately the metrics haven't been moving in the right direction. This has led to an over-reliance on road transport, which has had the consequences of congestion and damage and often fatalities, unfortunately. What we need to do is this is obviously not good for SA Inc. and is making our supply chain costs and ultimately the end consumer having way too much cost for the logistics, considering the distance it travels. So what we're looking to do is streamline that process in order to get the cost down and take it from there.
It's not going to be an easy task, and maybe that is why the collaboration between private and state partnership is required. But is there an estimation of how costly this is going to be?
So there are various estimates of cost going around. We specifically have prepared some costing our side to have a look at just what sort of impact we're going to have. In the 5 inland ports that we have so far in the membership, we're looking at roughly 40 billion rands worth of investment, and that's purely on the logistics or intermodal component of it. That excludes large portions of the warehousing or freight villages that would be required. We're looking to ultimately move between us in excess of 1 million TEUs, all by rail. And so these are ambitious targets that are going to require significant capital investment. And in this process, we're expecting amongst the terminals to create roughly 5 million jobs in the process, 500,000 jobs in the process, sorry.
That's quite encouraging, the timelines that you're working with?
So when dealing in the supply chain, and especially with parastatals, it's a bit like asking how long a piece of string is. However, what we have seen is an acceleration with regards to the opening and liberalization of the supply chain. And we are very encouraged currently by the legislation and the National Logistics Crisis Committee that are doing excellent work in order to speed up this reform. So whilst I can't give you an exact time frame, what I am seeing is a huge acceleration in what has been a very slow process up until probably this time last year. And from then, it's really started accelerating. And this has basically led to all the various stakeholders and role players rolling up the sleeves, stopping to play the blame game, and rather looking to see how we can come up with solutions to the many challenges we have.
On that latter part of your statement, with all stakeholders being on board, I think it's also quite critical that we seek to find out any challenges that could arise. Where are the anticipated bottlenecks? As you rightfully said, the blame game is a matter that should be a foregone conclusion.
Correct. What's the question?
the obstacles maybe that you are anticipating, particularly as you are working with stakeholders that have different interests here. We're talking about government, we're talking about the private sector. The main goal is the same. However, are you at least at this point as a risk assessment seeing that there could be certain challenges that should be obliterated at the earlier stages rather than later?
Yes, so there's many obstacles when you start coming into the changing environment we have. Obviously, the status quo isn't sufficient and isn't working for SA, so we have to go through change, and that brings inherent risks and obstacles. There are many voices to be heard in this discussion, and hence the association being formed in order to have the voice for the freight villages or inland ports or intermodalism per se. But all of the voices are very important that they are heard and are included in the Freight Master Plan in order to get a holistic view. That the whole point of a supply chain is it's only as strong as its weakest link. And if any portion of that chain has a weak link, we have the problem to go through it. So the holistic plan, the fact that vested interests don't overtake the process, and so oversight is very important and very encouraged by the work that the NLCC is doing that's led by government, but heavy involvement from USA, just to ensure that the frameworks of these inputs into these master plans, and while they're being formalized, is as transparent, robust, and fair as possible.
Thank you so much for your time. Warwick Lord is the chairperson of Mipa, talking to us about the transformation of the logistics system in Southern Africa.